everybody. I'm Alex Koldowski, CEO of ProTitle USA, Doc Solution USA, and One Diligence, the first AI-based TPR loan-level due diligence review firm. I'm extremely excited today to bring you a special guest, Pavan Agarwal, CEO of Sunwest Mortgage Company and founder of Cigence and creator of AI. Thank you for being here with us today, Pavan.
Thank you, Alex. I just have to make one correction. I didn't create AI, but I did create Angel AI.
Well, yeah, that's a good correction. AI was created a while ago, right? In 50s.
Yeah, 52. I mean, the first official machine learning algorithm was in 52 with some kind of game. But actually, there's an argument to be made that even the Enigma machine that they used in World War II is a form of AI. So, and then recently, I read in the news like 2-3 months ago, they actually found a computer, a 2,000, 3,000-year-old computer at the bottom of the Mediterranean Ocean off the coast of Greece, and a mechanical computer, right?
Interesting.
So, human, we tend to see the world in the last 50, 100 years, but, human beings have been on this planet a long time, and there's a lot of ancient knowledge that got lost. So we're no smarter today, and I can, if you've seen the movie Idiocracy, we're perhaps even dumber today than we were 3,000 years ago. So,
yeah, just because of the computer, right? It
Yep.
enables us to stop thinking and use the computer and use AI for that matter. But before we jump to AI and really our conversation is focused around AI, let me just, be upfront with you that I'm very intrigued with you. I'm very intrigued with you. I have been following you for some time. So I respect your strong family values, your relationship with your dad. You're a big believer in AI for the mortgage community, and of course, celebrity status because you ran, 2 Super Bowl ads with Angel
yes.
AI?
At 23 and 24, yes.
Yeah, as some mortgage companies stayed out, you stayed in. You were committed. So that was quite impressive. And like I said, to me, you're a celebrity. But let's start with your 2 companies. Tell me what makes those 2 companies unique and how they link together.
Well, first of all, you need to convince my wife that I'm a celebrity. So I need you and my wife to talk for a little bit.
Deal.
Second, so let me give a little background. So I have 2 companies, Sunwest Mortgage, my mortgage company, Cigence / Angel AI, which is my tech company. So the honor, the title for creating Sunwest Mortgage goes to my father. He did that in 1980. We immigrated to this country in 74, 75. I was just a little kid, got into real estate, and then made a lot of money in real estate through the 70s, and then started the mortgage company in 1980. And basically, since I was knee high to a grasshopper, I've been working with my dad and helping him in real estate and finance and mortgage companies and bond trading and Jenny Mae reporting and cleaning the bathrooms and painting the walls and mowing the lawn. It's like everything I've done when it comes to finance and real estate. And also, I was also a computer nerd. I sat in front of the computer since I was, like 11 years old. Every free moment I had, I sat in front of the computer. So one of the first practical applications that I built was, I think in 1983 or 1982, I built an application to generate the truth in lending disclosure off a PC, and did the calculation for the APR formula. So we were the only lender in the country that had the ability to generate a truth in lending on the spot, because back then it took 3 days to get a truth in lending out, because you had a secretary type up this long doc order form using those IBM Selectric typewriters. I don't know if you're old enough to remember those things.
I am, yeah.
Yeah. So they typed up that big form, transboxed it, couriered it to a data center that generated the truth in lending, and then they got mailed out. Right, and then of course you can't proceed with the application until the truth in lending is generated. So here, once I wrote the PC program, we were getting them out in 30 minutes, and there's no chance there's no possibility of mistakes, because what happened is the secretary could make a mistake filling and typing up the form, and then somebody on the other side at the data center could make a mistake transposing the data from the form into the mainframe, right? So, so basically, you know, like I was just hooked on computer applications and computerizing everything. My father is by education chemical engineer. He's a mathematician, and you know, he saw that mortgages, financial industries, like this too much. He would always tell me, "What is this? Too much manual labor? Why is everything manual?" He said, "Kid, go figure it out. Make it automatic." Right? There's no, like, he said, "Look at this. It's so simple." Right? And why do you have to put in the borrower's name here and here and here and here? Right? Why can't the computer automatically calculate income? Why can't the computer automatically project, you know, take all these data points and project a risk for this customer? Right? As he said, and he would sit down and show me these approaches of projecting risk, of calculating risk. Right? He would show me how he looked at a deal when he underwrote a deal, and he said, "This is how I look at it." Right? He said, "It's not that hard." I said, "And you can have a computer look at it the same way I look at it." Right? Because I look at these data points, I look at what it means to the overall family, and then I ask myself. And he had a simple rule. All he would do is ask himself one question: would I lend my own money to this customer? Right? So a lot of people, especially in non-bank financial institutions, because you're lending other people's money as either HUD or Freddie or Fannie or some investor, right? You forget that it is still somebody's money at the end. So if you respect the money and you respect the transaction as if it was your own money, you'll make a lot of good deals. And so he'd like ingrained this in me, like, "Okay, kid, go figure it out. You're good with computers. You're good with math. Go figure it out and find a way to automate the whole thing." So he saw that artificial intelligence and computerization is the future of this industry. So I wrote my first AI program back in 1985.
Oh, wow.
And my conclusion was, and I worked with it, and my conclusion was, wait, this is going to take lots and lots of data. This is not so simple. Right? And it's going to, and then also I said, this is going to take a lot of data. It's going to take some big, massive computers, which we
Your
can't.
CPU? Yeah.
Yeah, right. The CPU, just big. I mean, lots of. I mean, back then, I mean, a 10 megabyte hard drive was like $1,000 back then. It was a big deal. I don't know if you remember those Seagate 10 megabyte hard drives back then.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Those are big machines.
Yes. Big, huge machines. And so I was like, wait, this is, and the amount of data is going to take just to make, just to program an AI, if we could fill up that 10 megabyte hard drive in a second. Like, okay. So I said, well, we're not ready to do this yet. We don't have the money to buy, huge computers. Right? We're still a small company. Right. So I said, let me at least create a platform, an architecture that where we can start collecting all the data and storing it in a central database, so that when we're ready, we can create artificial intelligence properly and make underwriting risk assessments and decisions. So that process of collecting data started from way back in the 80s, and organizing and creating this massive database that we have today. So it's like we figured out, like today, I don't know if you've heard the saying, like, data is the new gold or the new oil.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Well, we figured out how valuable data was back in the early 80s, because if you ever wanted to program and train AI, you need lots of data. So we're like data pack rats on collecting and organizing data forever. And so along the way, then, we kept improving the systems that I built systems, and it kept improving them. And so essentially the kernel of Angel AI, the core that does all the heavy lifting, I wrote that kernel in the late 90s, actually in the 90s, from like 92 to 99, I wrote that kernel.
That's impressive, because the infrastructure was not there.
Yeah.
The computers were too slow, it was too expensive, and you wrote the kernel to collect the data. That's impressive.
Yeah, and it was rough. And we had 386 machines back then, and it used tons of memory, tons of storage. It was very expensive to run the kernel, and it wasn't because of that, it was slow, right? slower than other things out there. So it had problems because the hardware wasn't there, but still it ran and it got things done. Okay, and it was very good at what it did, but it had problems due to hardware limitations. But we kept at it and kept pushing forward, and that kernel still exists. Is this still the same kernel of Angel AI today? Right, and so then we
Is that
wrote
part of Cigence? So you move the software element of Sunwest and the kernel into Cigence, and now it
yes,
became a
yeah,
software engine to feed Sunwest?
correct. All the intellectual property resides inside Cigence. All the data, all the intellectual property resides in there. All the training and all the AI algorithms, all our patents, it's all in Cigence. So I formed Cigence officially. The corporation, the LLC, was formed in 2013. So as you know, I live in Puerto Rico. I'm a resident of
You
Puerto
do?
Rico. I moved there in 2013. That's when we formed Cigence. And because of the tax treaty between with Puerto Rico, I get to be a U.S. citizen. I form a tech company in Puerto Rico, and that tech company is built in Puerto Rico by Puerto Ricans, right? And we employ hundreds of people in Puerto Rico to both support the tech company and the mortgage company. So now all of that value that's been built in Puerto Rico, this whole product, right, is made in Puerto Rico.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think I heard from my friends, we have common friends, that live in Puerto Rico. You're next to Peter Schiff and others and folks that are running hedge funds just for the tax reasons. And that's a smart move. I never committed myself. I'm bouncing between Florida and PA since I started all companies. And I just, couldn't convince my wife. So, so that was the true reason. But let me just touch on the fact that, living in Puerto Rico, they speak Spanish?
Unfortunately, no. I'm really good at math, but I'm bad at languages.
Okay.
I can barely speak English, so
Yeah. But AI doesn't care about the language barrier, right?
yeah,
In
correct.
fact, I think if I'm not mistaken, maybe I am incorrect me, please, if I'm wrong. You really focus on Spanish community, right?
Correct.
Underprivileged Spanish community, which with the AI engine that doesn't care about the language, you can really create a broad net to attract people from underserved Spanish communities or others into your lending platform.
That is correct. So Angel AI speaks like over 100 languages, and it
Yeah,
translates in real time on the fly. And so the advantage is the results are that in some ethnic communities we've cut decline rates by as much as half,
wow,
and that's like when we measure actual application decline rates. But I think the numbers is many times more than that, because when you eliminate these barriers, when you make it more accessible and easy and comfortable, and most importantly is you eliminate this fear of judgment, because the consumer is talking to an AI and not a human being, so they're comfortable. They don't feel like this. What is this person going to think of me, right? So it's more inviting. It's a more pleasant and more stress-free experience. So we're getting more people into the process that would have otherwise not even considered, getting a mortgage or any kind of advanced financial or mainstream financial products, because they have this sort of level of embarrassment. Maybe they had a couple of collections, or maybe they had a medical issue and so forth, and they're embarrassed and they don't want to talk to somebody about these things. Right? But if you don't talk to somebody, if you don't get advice, right, you'll never be able to fix those. You'll never be able to move on. Okay, so AI's become sort of a nice, comfortable path where you can get answers in your own privacy, the privacy of your own home, and you get good answers. You get answers like as if you're talking to an experienced banker. Okay, I would argue is better than an experienced banker, because it knows everything, right? Experienced
yeah.
bankers no matter how much experience you have, you can't possibly know everything. And then the training database of Angel AI is like terabytes and terabytes of data. It's got every regulation and every whatever in it. So
Pavan, let's connect the dots. So again, my understanding of AI is we're talking about two things here, and I want to connect them together. Talking to the clients, it's more like ChatGPT, it's like Gen AI, while the LLM models and all the data maintained within your company, it seems like more machine learning, data extraction, computer vision, things like that. So those are two separate, AI technologies. How do you connect them together, right?
Yeah. So we released Angel AI. The first version was in 2018, right? And that was ChatGPT 1.0 back then. LLMs were still experimental. So Angel AI is not built using LLMs. It's not built with anything that you would recognize. So it is a neural net built from the scratch, from ground up. And it's built on a completely different premise than the other LLMs and other AI systems out there. MIT did a paper on I'll send that to you later after this call. MIT did a paper a couple of years ago about biological systems and their influence on how biological systems can be used as a inspiration, not influence, as an inspiration to create artificial intelligence and what they call artificial life. Okay, so we looked at biological systems. We looked at how the body creates neurons, how it creates stem cells that evolve into neurons, and how neurons themselves evolve. And we use that as a premise for Angel AI, and that's how the neural network inside Angel AI works. So we have, you can say the metaphor is we have a DNA, a base code, okay, and then that base code then is morphed and adjusted for different decisions that it makes. So Angel AI, you could think of it as millions of little cells that make little tiny micro decisions, right? Just like a neuron firing on and off, and then those decisions feed up into a central hub, and then bigger decisions made, and so on. So it's a very novel, completely different way of doing AI. This was and because we had to do something different than LLMs. And first of all, LLMs didn't exist when we were building this, and second is this is financial services, right? So if I say, Alex, you're approved for $1 million mortgage, right? And the AI makes that decision, I can't undo that, right? If I say you're approved, and you know what, and in the mortgage business, it happens all the time when human beings do it all the time, right? You talk to your loan officer says, yeah, I'll get you approved. And then a day before closing, yeah, you're not approved anymore. And you lose your escrow deposit or whatever, right? All that stress. All right, so it happens in practice in the mortgage business all the time. That's why there's all this pressure to make sure you have a good realtor and a good mortgage guy. Okay, but when you use AI, and with Angel AI, it makes a decision, it makes it fast. Okay, by fast I mean I've seen it as quickly as 30 minutes, and kind of on the outside a couple hours. Okay, and it makes a decision, final decision on Alex, here's $1 million approval at, whatever, 5% down, 10% down, whatever it is, right? And that's approvals. Like,
is that conditional or that's final? So in other words, 30 minutes for final, conditional?
Final approval.
Wow.
And if you had documents that were that you didn't supply that are still needs, it will tell you I need these documents, and you just add those documents that are. And when you give it a document that it's asking for, it reviews it on the spot. It doesn't like the biggest problem in the mortgage business is like you get a what you call a conditional approval that has maybe 5 documents, 10 documents you need. Maybe you need 1 more month's bank statement or something. And then the challenge there is like, okay, the customer goes and gets the document, submits it, right? Now you wait several days before you find out what the document's acceptable. Right. And so it's frustrating. Like, let's say in a traditional mortgage process, let's say it asks for your February, Bank of America bank statement. Okay. And you as a customer submit it by mistake March bank statement, right? Instead of February, right? But by the time it goes through the whole underwriting process and reviewed and so forth, there's 3 days have gone by. And now you say 3 days later, like, oh shoot, you gave me February, you should have given me, or you gave me March, and I asked for February. Now the customer says, he's like, why did you wait 3 days to tell me that? Right?
And that's frustrating. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Right. So whereas now if the customer submitted the wrong bank statement into the AI will tell almost immediately, like, this is the wrong bank statement. because it reviews the documents on the spot. Okay, so there's no this submit, wait for a human review, come back, right? Or let's say you submitted for every bank statement and that had a large deposit in it, right? And most of these programs have every large deposit has to be explained, right? So the AI reads the document and looks for large deposits, looks for large withdrawals, things like that, and on the spot it's going to say, hey, you got this large deposit on February 20th for $300,000. You have to explain this. Where's the source of that? Right. So you don't have this kind of this delay cycle. Right. The biggest problem, the real core problem in mortgage banking, and why consumers get so frustrated with their bank, is because of the time. You really need speed in this business. Right. Customers hate submitting documents, waiting, and then get more questions and ask the questions, then waiting, right? And on it goes, right? And that's because there's a bottleneck of underwriting, right? And every lender has very few underwriters. They're the most expensive resource is the underwriter. You have a few of them. And of your pool of underwriters, you have even fewer who are any good.
By the way, I agree with you because this is the gist behind me starting the AI-based TPR firm. Because I looked at the market and I saw that everything is paper pushing, right? And I applaud you for starting Angel AI and the way you approach things, because I don't understand why our mortgage and banking community doesn't do the same thing as you do, right? They're resistant to change. The industry is very old. People that are underwriting are very old. They are afraid of AI. And what do you think the state of adoption is? I mean, to tell the truth, I would recommend any large bank to do the same thing as you do. We'll license your technology.
Yeah. Well, here's the reason why the adoption rate is so low. It's basically zero. And the reason is because if you go to ChatGPT and you upload your bank statements into it and say, can you review the bank statements and tell me if this would meet my requirements for the Fannie Mae guidelines? Okay. It won't know what to do with that. LMs aren't capable of doing that. They don't know how to read through every transaction. They don't know Fannie Mae guidelines. They don't know what a large deposit is. They don't know what big withdrawals are.
You have to train for it, right? You have to train your local models for it.
You're right. Well, and this actually is beyond the scope of LLMs to train for these kinds of things. All right, it's way beyond the scope. And even if you could train them, I don't think the skill set exists within financial services to do something like that. I mean, heck, the skill set doesn't even exist in Amazon. I mean, did you see that the news report that came out a few weeks ago about Amazon cheating on their AI?
Really, I didn't. Did they have humans behind in the trunk? I mean, what is the cheating? Yeah, go ahead.
Literally, so they're walk out. Where you pick up the products from their Amazon stores and you walk out and the AI is supposed to understand everything and generate the receipt and so forth.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So purchasing a product in a store is a simple financial transaction, right? It's not nearly as complex as a mortgage or buying a house.
Yeah, great.
You walk in the store, you buy a bottle of water, you walk out, right? Okay, you pick up a bottle of water and you walk out. And so now it has to know the price, has to know who you are, it has to generate a receipt, it has to charge taxes, right? It has to do all of these things, right? It's a simple financial transaction. Okay, and it was being done all by hand. Okay, so they had a
They're Amazon, right? It's supposed to be AI trained. Everything is artificial, intelligence driven, and I'm surprised.
Yeah, so that's a $1 trillion company that can't figure out that little simple financial transaction. Right? How in the world are they going to figure out how to do a mortgage or a real estate transaction? Okay, so that puts it in perspective how far ahead we are. Right.
So let me jump on this because this is so important for my audience to understand as well. You can't get rid of humans, right? So you have an AI element that collects the data, analyzes the data. How much human labor is behind it on your side, for example, when you run the application, either human in the loop. By the way, I'm against human in the loop definition of Google AI, right? because I think it's a bottleneck, but somebody who is experienced enough to analyze the sort of conditional approval of the AI to make a final stamp of approval by a human. Is that how you build the company, or there's more human elements that are somebody's responsible for training, somebody's responsible for data entry, somebody's responsible for correction, we're analyzing guidelines? How do you see the human elements inserted in that AI world? And I'm surprised that Amazon doesn't do it.
Yeah. Right. So, I mean, I don't know the full story about exactly what Amazon was doing behind the scenes, but from what I've read so far, it seems like it was completely fake. That they had very little, if any AI in there. Okay. Which, look, I mean, the service was still great. I mean, the only issue was is sometimes it was off by, somebody didn't get a receipt for an hour or two. Right. So, I mean, just for the fact that anyone can set that up and it work, right? That alone is pretty amazing, right? Forget how, forget who was doing what. Okay. It's just that they lied about it. I mean, why would a $1 trillion company, and they're publicly traded company. So they announce this thing, they announce this major product, then, and it affects their share prices, and they lied about it. So that's fraud. They defrauded their investors. So hopefully somebody gets punished for this.
Agreed.
But, again, this isn't about Amazon, it's about Angel AI. So there's actually a cutting edge field of research. I mean, it's like this way cutting edge field of research called Augmented Intelligence. And I put out a post about this about a month or two ago, which basically one of the senior generals, and I don't know what they call them, generals or whatever, in the Air Force. And he's basically the guy in the Air Force who's in charge of the Air Force's AI, long-term AI strategy. Okay, so and he basically concluded that forget it, guys. It's not a future where you're going to have these missile systems or these defense systems completely run by AI. So it's not going to happen. Okay, but what you have is the man and machine coming together and jointly working. So the machine, the AI, is a force multiplier. Right. So instead of, for example,
it's not the killer robots running around, right? It's not James Cameron movie.
Yeah.
And Terminators are all over the place and things get exploded. None of that, right?
None of that, right? And so this is the, and this was an in-depth paper that the Air Force issued, and basically laid out like how they're approaching this and what's going to happen. So the idea there is that, hey, there's just like Tesla's self-driving cars, is a long way to go, right?
Yeah.
Okay, if self-driving cars are a long way to go, think about a fighter jet that can kill people. How long away that has to go, right? So what really AI is a force multiplier. So instead of one pilot controlling one plane, how about one pilot controlling 100 planes or 1,000 planes, right? And that's where the magic of AI is. So in the augmented intelligence world, which is what Angel AI is, okay, is we have people offshore. We have, I don't know, maybe like 10 people in India that are overseeing all the chats that go through Angel AI and helping. Every time it gets stuck, they help it. Every time.
It's part of the training loop, right? It's a part of the training loop.
Oh, it's yes, it's part of the training loop. It's definitely part of the training loop because every time they help it, it learns, right? But more importantly, the trick, right? And this is where like it's really amazing what we've done is that they're able to do it in real time, right? So we have like 10 people that are helping it constantly, and the current throughput is we have like we're getting over 2 chats a second, and millions of chats are going through it. All right, so 2 chats a second. So think about it, 10 people controlling 2 chats a second. That like
it's phenomenal,
right? And it's
how many laws you can handle. It's you can probably be as efficient as somebody like Chase or Citi.
Yes, exactly. So it's all about like and I think this is going to go from 10 people doing 2 chats a second to 10 people doing 200 chats a second, right? And as it gets trained better and it gets faster. So, and if you look at Angel AI's progress over the past 12 months, if you've been using it, And the number one feedback we get from customers who've been using for the past year or past 2 years, they're like, wow, it's gotten so much faster. Right? It's so much more responsive. And it's just because more people have used it, the more it's learned, and there's fewer exceptions, there are fewer questions the AI asks the human. So what happens is it gets stuck, it's not sure, and then it asks the humans that are overseeing it, hey, I'm not sure what to do about this. What should I do? And the human responds. And then it continues. And then asks, so the more time it has to go back to human to ask what it should do, right? The slower it is.
Yeah, true. And have you been in the Sphere, Las Vegas Sphere?
Have I what?
Have you been in the Sphere in Las Vegas?
Oh, no, I have not. Have not
Oh,
been in.
I definitely recommend. There's a AI robots standing there, and you talk to them. And not only they respond, they crack jokes.
Yeah.
And that was phenomenal. And jokes are spot on. So the machine is learning, but still, what would you recommend to somebody in Citi or Chase or Bank of America or any other lenders, financial institutions? How do you measure a benefit of AI, right? Because it seems like you invested so much in technologies and now it's paying off, right? And it's very hard for them to say, all right, we have a current business, we're paper pushers, or we just, did the baby step here. We don't want to leap forward with the AI. Is that wrong? I mean, what would you tell them?
Well, I think if you don't leap forward with the AI, it's kind of like saying, well, imagine yourself in the 19th century, farming the land with simple tools, right? With a horse and buggy and a simple plow.
Yeah.
Right? And then somebody comes with one of these massive tractors, right? Right. And plows 100 acres in one afternoon. Right. And plows seeds and harvests all at the same time in one afternoon. Right. I mean, you got to go figure this out. Right. I mean, what do I tell them? Basically, every bank today, it does everything manually. It's completely manually. They use simple tools, very much like 19th century farmer, with simple tools, with a horse and a plow. And that's how they're doing mortgages. That's how they're doing banking. It's all manual. And I'm coming in here with this massive high-tech tractor, and I could take 1,000 acres and do it in a couple hours. So
I think, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So I think they've got to understand they're obsolete, and they got to figure out what to do next.
I think that White House jumps in, and I don't know if you saw it 2 weeks ago. White House and Biden's administration came out with an order to force all government agencies to nominate chief artificial intelligence for each government department. It tells me that government is trying to push all the private companies as well as the government into that AI world. Is that how you see it? Does it help us? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the government asking each agency to have a chief AI officer. I mean, the first question I have is, what's the quality control on that? Who is this person that's selecting and how? And I mean, let's face it, the smartest people don't work for the government. They'll be working for Silicon Valley, right? Or be working for me. They're not going to work for the government. Right. So number one. Number two is the Biden administration is either I think they're working on, or they propose a rule which I detest, which is basically saying that an AI company has to submit all of their training algorithms to the government.
It's a private property. It's your IP. How can you do that? I disagree.
Exactly, because and the whole idea is, well, to protect the people, right? And all that is these are just cronies of Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos, right? And so that they want to have first look at what innovation is coming out, so they can steal it or acquire these people. That's all it is. I mean, let's face it. Like all these bureaucrats, these people have so much money. They get politicians elected, and then they get bureaucrats appointed in these agencies who do their bidding, and they have massive
they don't know
lobbying
the technology.
power.
Did you see how what questions Zuckerberg got when he was in front of the Senate? That was funny.
I did not.
Oh, he was educating on how they make money and what the internet is, and what happens with the cell phones, and it was bizarre. older folks that are not familiar with technology were on technology committee. So that was pretty eye-opening. But I echo their concern about the security, right? So what their concern is, AI is something, right, that looks at the private data, looks at the PII, knows the PII, learns the PII, and can use it for, say, deep fakes or something of that sort, right? So that's what I read by talking to people. And I received 6 calls, being myself an expert in AI as well, just like you. I received 6 calls last week or 2 weeks ago from different clients of ours who are government agencies. And first question is, we have no idea what to do with this new order, right? How do we fulfill? Who is responsible? I can be responsible for all I care. I mean, it's their talking, right? But, what do we monitor? The message that they got is they are concerned about PAI, security, AI monitoring, and remembering the data, right? Did that ever come through your desk or your concern for your clients that I'm giving you my driver's license, I'm giving you my home address? Are you remembering it? Now I'm afraid, are you holding it somewhere? So how do you battle those thoughts that people are afraid of AI by knowing that the AI will read the PII data and do something?
Yeah, the best answer to that is I did a podcast with Vivek Ramaswamy a couple of months ago, and I asked him the same question, and he was spot on. He basically said, "What's the difference? What's the difference between the AI having the data and your bank's mainframe having the data on your bank? Your bank, whoever you bank with has got all your PII, and even worse than having your PII, it can transfer your money around. It's got your money." Okay. He's like, it's in a database. AI is nothing more than another form of database, right? And so there's already existing tort laws in place to protect you. Right? And these are really, really, anyone in financial services knows how tough these tort laws are, especially the ones that California passed in the last year, 23.
Yep.
So those tort laws don't have an exclusion for AI, right? It's a database is a database. It doesn't matter what form of database. So I think there's a bunch of fear mongering going on. I think the general public does not understand AI. Okay. And they think it's a somehow separate living independent entity. It's not alive. I
wanted to share with you, one of the things that I used to scare people. So I don't know if you can see. It's me and a bunch of robots. So mind plays are really scared and say, "Oh, those robots are coming to replace me." But I keep telling them, "No, that's a gimme. Don't be afraid." But same concern, right? They're afraid that it's something living, it's something that knows what to do with your data, and it's not the case. It's just a computer.
Yeah. The fear is that the AI takes your data and does something independently with it, without human intervention, right? And I have 2 responses to that. Number one, just like the chief of Air Force strategy, whatever, I forget this title. I have to go look up that old post. Just like what he said is we're not going to kill people independently with just letting AI kill people. And it just won't get it right. Okay, so it's going to be augmented intelligence for a long time, right? And this is number one. Number two, Angel AI is built on the premise of augmented intelligence because if I'm issuing a warranty, right? Basically saying that if Alex, I approve you for $1 million, and if it gets it wrong, right, I'm going to fund that loan anyways, right? If it miscalculated ratios and you're not, and it approved you for $1 million when it should have only approved you for $700,000, right? I'm going to fund that $1 million loan because my AI gave you that decision. And I'll put that loan on my balance sheet.
So that's insurance and certification at the same time, right?
Yes. A warranty, right?
A warranty.
Yeah. And like I said, we've done, since 2018, we've done over 200,000 transactions through Angel AI, and I've had to only exercise that warranty 4 times, right? And I've honored 100%. Okay,
that's amazing.
Yeah, so. first of all, people have to understand that it's not alive, it's not independent. Second is what we've done and what the Air Force is doing and what everyone else is figuring out is the only responsible when there's high stakes, like killing people or your money, things like that, right? If you're not just using AI to cheat on your college essay, all right, but when there's some really high stakes involved, then the only path is augmented intelligence. There has to be a process where there's oversight. Okay.
So that's what you see the future, right? So this is something I would love for you to comment. 5 years from now, where do you see AI? I'm applauding Elon Musk for stepping in as well with XAI, right? Because in my mind, what you just said is what Elon Musk is trying to do, right? He's trying to certify AI and create some sort of a adoption of certification trusts, right? Of things that XAI reviews. That's my understanding of XAI, right? Is that how you see it? And is that the path leading into the future?
I think the path. I think we got to stop getting ahead of ourselves. We got to stop the fear mongering, stop the scare tactics. And as it's, first, if you think about it, like Elon Musk himself, right? While he was before OpenAI cut him out and made a deal with Microsoft, right? He was hyping up AI like it's going to take over the world and all this kind of things, right? And then they cut him out, and then when he started building his own AI, now he's changed his tone completely, right? So if you look at his Twitter feed and you see he's gone 180 degrees, right? So then, why do people still listen to him, right? It's like clearly he's opportunistic. Right? Clearly he doesn't mean what he's saying. He's saying only what is fashionable at that moment. And in court, when he was sued over what comments he made on Twitter, right? And he won the lawsuit. And he won that lawsuit on the premise of don't believe anything I say on Twitter. Right? He said his whole argument was don't believe anything I say on social media. It's all just entertainment. Right?
Yeah.
So bottom line, don't listen to what these people are saying, right? And just focus on their actions. What are they actually doing? Right? And what is he doing? He invested in OpenAI. Now he's suing Microsoft for making a nonprofit into a profit, which, by the way, I'm in the middle of, I actually support him on that lawsuit. And I have a nonprofit about keeping AI open as well that is filing a amicus brief in support of Elon Musk on that one. It's a separate story. We talk about that. That could be a podcast topic all by itself.
Absolutely.
Right. So, and actually just look at his actions and look at Bill Gates' action, look at Jeff Bezos' actions, right? And Mark Zuckerberg's actions. And his actions is now, hey, we're going to create an AI and he talks about all these things about, different ways of controlling and regulating it. He's still part of the same regulatory bandwagon. He just wants his regulations. Right? All these people want regulations pushed through in a way that advantages them. Now, ultimately, if you think about Microsoft, if you think about Amazon, and you think about Meta, right? And you say, okay, yes, there's certain personalities that are on top of these corporations, whether it's Bill Gates or whoever, Elon Musk or Zuckerberg or whatever, right? That really control those things. But when you look at the shareholdings, right? Ultimately, who's really holding those shares? State Street, BlackRock, right? And who's behind those kinds of companies? State Street, BlackRock, JP Morgan. And who's behind those companies? A handful of mega wealthy families that have controlled the world the last 100+ years, right? So, who's really in pulling the strings of this stuff and who really wants these regulations? Right? So if you were a 20%, 30% shareholder of Facebook, if you were a 30% shareholder of Microsoft, right, what would you want? Right? You want those companies to become even more powerful, right?
But,
and if you were State Street and you had 20% stake in every pharma company and 20% stake in every tech company, right? Right? What are you pushing for? You're pushing for government regulations that builds a moat that makes these companies bigger and more powerful. And who cares about the average citizen?
It sounds like a separate podcast to me.
Sounds like
Government
what?
theory, yeah, separate podcast to me. To talk about
Yeah, the whole, yeah,
how everything's
and
interconnected. Um,
yeah. Well, I
hey,
mean, look, this isn't some kind of a fantasy conspiracy theory kind of thing. Just go do the homework yourself. Look at who owns the shares of these companies, and if you
I'm in
take
the
the
same
time,
camp as you. Yeah,
yeah,
but to our general audience, I think that's a known fact, right? So
yeah,
it's it still stops at they see their world. It's very narrow. You don't see what's behind it, and as long as they're happy, right? They don't care that much about what's going on around that world.
yeah.
Um,
Well,
but
and I'm glad you talked about it. As long as you're happy, right? And you should be happy that there are more than just one or two or three companies that are working on AI and giving you good solutions. Because right, the simple as the general audience, the average citizen should say, "Hey, I should have a choice other than Coke and Pepsi." Right? Why is just about every food and beverage brand is owned by either Coke or Pepsi? Okay, I should have a choice other than that. Right? So support. Right? The best way to do that is support independence. Right? Support your local farmers. Support the independent brand. Okay, and and those independent brands don't have those chemicals in those drinks and highly processed food, which we all know is just destroying our bodies. Right? Support your local farmer markets and things like that. Okay, so the same thing. Right? If when it comes to technology, there's a lot of great technology that is not necessarily owned by all just those couple of big names. Right?
I agree, and that from my own experience, I have many roadblocks from some
Mhm.
of the big names out there to block my companies
Mhm.
not entering the market just
Yeah.
because of AI, no
Yeah.
control,
Hmm.
and being independent.
Yeah.
I'm not a title company. I'm not
Right.
controlled by the huge underwriters like First American, Secor,
Yeah.
Chicago, and so on, Fidelity, right? And staying independent gives me power to do what I want, but at the
Exactly.
same time, just like you, right? Uh, at the same time, you do feel the pressure every day, right? The pressure is, you want to get paid, you stay in line. You want to do something on your own, it's going to be very difficult for you.
Well, I don't worry about the pressure so much because I think the way I see it is, look, ultimately, um, brain power destroys money power all the time.
Yeah,
Right? And we just apply enough brain power, and then if we do the right thing, if we're using our brains and doing things for the right reasons, right, God will be on your side, and you'll get things done. So I don't worry about those things. And yes, there will be strong, difficult forces that are challenging you and trying to stop you. But right, as long as you got God on your side, you're going to always prevail in the end.
I agree with that. On that note, Pavan, again, I wanted to give you a huge thanks for coming on the podcast, finding time. You're a very hard person to get in touch with, but I finally did. And again, thanks so much for your time, valuable insight, and I hope people will use Angel AI all the time.
Thank you, Alex. Cheers. I appreciate your support.
My pleasure. All
Thank
right.
you. Bye.
Take care, all.